process involves refrigerated transport, storage, distribution, packaging, temperature monitoring, and control at every step to prevent spoilage. So coming to a very general and open question, what latest trends and innovations are reshaping the cold chain logistics and warehousing industry? To start with, Ms. Preeti.
Okay, so I would talk about the transportation first. I think the invent of the real-time temperature loggers is something that has really interested me, because as I was mentioning that, not only the temperature, but you can also monitor the location of where the shipment is, what is the temperature, if the box has been opened, because there is also a feature of light. The moment that you open the box, light would enter into it, so you get to know that the box has been opened, because there is an alarm for the light also. And also shock, there recently, there was one shipment that was done for pharmaceutical company, and very very big pharma company, and it was a liquid nitrogen shipper. Later on, after there was some spoilage of a very very expensive shipment, and later on we got to know what was done was that it was a dry shipper. It was a big round cylinder kind of a shipment, and maybe the ground handling agency just put it under their feet and rolled it because it was too heavy. And had there been that kind of a real-time temperature logger which would have noticed the shock or the tilt, it would have just sent an alarm. So I think the invent of all these monitoring devices which are real-time, to me, they really interest me a lot. Yeah, I would say for me that is really interesting.
Thank you very much for sharing the views with a glaring example. And coming to Ms. Dr. Nathan, what are your views about it?
See, as we are talking about cold chain, and we come more from agriculture use cases. So I want to eat Indian apples in summer, and in India, right, what we get is Fuji or Washington apple. And one of the primary challenges is lack of cold chain at the farm. So, and also, right, sustainable cold chain. As already we are hitting, I think, 43 plus degrees Celsius temperature. So my idea on the future development is towards more sustainable and more farm gate level cooling solutions, because those are need of the hour. And as India probably is about 20 to 30% of post-harvest losses we witness, and these need to go down. And so focus is towards sustainable and the more grid resilient.
Thank you, Dr. Nathan. Yes, that has to be a sustainable environment throughout the cold chain, and that is the future. So, Mr. Vinay, what are your views about this?
Yeah, Mr. Gopal, see when we speak about cold chain, any chain for that matter can be as strong as its weakest link, So it's very important that not only post-harvest, whether it is storage or transportation, or again, getting the temperature sensitive equipment or product getting delivered at the last leg. It has to be very, we have to ensure that, it is being transported at the right temperature with the right equipment and with the right service backup as well. Because if, a truck or a cold room or whatever it may be, if, it fails for some reason, then certain backup has to be given. So a cold chain, it's not like any ordinary transportation. It is very sensitive. We have to work round the clock, 24/7. We have to be available, and we have to ensure that all the trucks are running on the field. So yes, it's very important to ensure that we keep bringing in new technologies. As I was mentioning, we keep bringing in new products. We keep pace with the time and the market requirement. So market is also changing and evolving a lot. So we have to keep pace with the trends which are happening in the market.
Definitely, we have to keep pace with trends. Thank you, Mr. Vinay. Mr. Phillips, we want to hear your views.
See, for me, there are a lot of IoT sensors which are being used, which is giving as a real-time monitoring rather than just tracking. It is giving a real-time monitoring with a lot of dashboard and a lot of data visibility, which is also used for further analysis and decision makings. Along with this, there is a practice of or there is a practice of increasing the transparency. With the transparency, there are ethical practices are also will be followed, both in pharma or in food or in any cold chain. So that's what the trend is more towards, what I can see. And the customers, well, for me, the customers, I handle the cold chain, or I maintain the cold chain for them. So they are also getting more aware about the cold chain techniques, the requirement, and more aware of the they wanted to be more aware of the product, like quality, before it is getting consumed or used. So this bringing new transparency is the trend what I can see in the market, and which is not driven by a manufacturer. It is driven by the end customer, which is really they wanted to consume the product.
Definitely, Mr. Phillips. You were talking about the integration and adoption of technology during your discussion, monitoring or RFID and traceability. So while you talk about the transparency, what are your recommendations towards the blockchain technology for supply chain transparency and traceability?
See, blockchain is one thing which is a mandatory thing when we are adopting multiple technologies at the same time. And you don't have a single umbrella to have all the technologies in a place. So
Correct.
you have to have a multiple service providers or multiple solutions to have the end-to-end visibility and end-to-end monitoring. So the adoption of blockchain, obviously it will be a costlier affair, provided it requires, your product requires that or not, is the question. When if the answer is yes, then definitely there will be inclination towards that, and adoption will be faster in that.
Adoption has to faster.
Yeah.
Mr. Vinay, you were talking about the refrigerated transport and deliveries. So what about the sensors and equipment in reefer trucks for cold chain logistic management throughout the transit?
We do have sensors, sensors are there in the trucks. And apart from that, when I was talking about links technology, so with that also we have sensors, we can put sensors across the truck, which through which the temperature can be easily monitored. So the sensors can be located uh, right across the container. It can be towards the door side. It can be towards the unit side where the evaporator is there, through which the return air comes. It can be towards the pallet where the temperature, the products are kept. So you can keep sensors right across the container. And later on, there is a live monitoring and live tracking of those sensors. You can choose the sensors which you want to monitor. You can monitor all the sensors at a given go, or you can decide to monitor one particular sensor at any given point in time. So yes, it's available. It's available and it's being used a lot
Yes,
these days.
sensor uses is increasing with the
Yeah.
more logistics
Yes.
requirement. Coming to Ms. Preeti, while you were talking about the logistics and farmer transport and their degraded state, of course, due to some reasons or others, packaging and insulation, everything you covered in. So what new technology will you recommend to ensure the efficiency of cold chain logistic process, especially for temperature controlled packaging and in regions with extreme climates?
I would say if you talk about technology, I would say using of the artificial intelligence to do some predictive analysis
Correct.
of, if because we have so much of data available already,
Correct.
the pharma companies who are doing it, they're already doing it, and they've been using temperature logger. Temperature logger is not something new. For as long as we have been in the industry, we have been seeing, and so much of data is already there. And I think there are few companies that I know of, they have also already compiled that data. Now, the integration of all that and using of the artificial intelligence, and then based on the external ambient condition, what kind of packaging system would be recommended for a particular lane, for a particular mode. I think if we can integrate this, it could really be very, very helpful in, making those spoilages less. and that percentage of 20 to 30% that WHO has given us, I think we can save something there if we use this.
Yeah, that's quite knowledge sharing. Dr. Nitin, what are your views about this?
See, one of the main challenge which we feel right now is that compressors are not variable speed. So variable speed compressors need to be adopted more. Second is, as we have equivalent of BEE standards in air conditioning, there are no standards for cold chain. We have seen numerous examples where very big companies are using undersized condensers for cold storage as compared to milk cooler. Same compressor is there. And so there has to be some very strong standards, at least on like use of EV, use of TXV, right? Still people are using capillary. Right? There has to be a solution side heat exchanger which need to be installed. And those are the key things which need to be done, at least to increase the efficiencies.
Right, Dr. Nitin. You were talking about the thermal storage and solar cold storage also in your discussions. So what advancement do you see for real-time data to enable decision making when the temperature variation is there?
So, see, one of the main advantage with thermal storage backed solar cold storage, what's cold chain, is that these thermal storages have autonomy of 48 hours. So we don't have that much of challenges which are traditional cold storage sees, because you have 48 hours of autonomy. Second is that the duty cycle of compressor is much lower. In a traditional cold storage, if the temperature goes up within 5 minutes, your compressor is turning on and off in every 5 minutes. In these cases, the temperature, the compressor only runs for 30 minutes. So the duty cycle is much, much lower. And the third advantage is that these are more like elastic band, right? Thermal storage. So I call it more like a hybrid car. You have an engine and you have a electric battery. Same is thermal storage power with electric compressor. Both of them will works in tandem. So when you require more cooling, thermal storage will provide the cooling. And if cooling requirement has gone down, then compressor will provide balanced cooling to the thermal storage. So those are the primary advantages for thermal storage. What we have seen is that as we work in very remote locations in likes of Nagaland, Ladakh, Kargil, and in these locations, we do have our IoT data logger, but those are meant for understanding the system failure or their service requirement. So that really helps us in improving the serviceability and right, telling the customer that condenser is bad, right? It's not clean, you need to clean it, or refrigerant is getting low, right? So those things.
Yeah, you're just mentioning about the thermoelectric refrigeration. So what are your recommendations for the solar and thermoelectric refrigeration systems in the cold chain?
So, so I have worked in thermoelectric 10 years back. So in thermoelectric, one of the example which in our past company we have licensed to Godrej was Cube, QUBE, this Cube small fridge. So thermoelectric really works well for small delta T, about 21 to 30 degree delta T. The temperature differential between cold and high side. And these are really, it works really good for about a 100 watt of heat load. So if there's a very small heat load, they work very well. And of course, there is no refrigerant, there is no moving part, but they have their own limitations, but they have their own advantages also.
Thank you, Dr. Nitin, for your insightful discussion. And Mr. Phillips, in what ways to address the logistic challenges to optimize operational efficiency during storages?
See, we have got multiple ways of addressing this particular problem, either which is in our own equipments or which is an outsourced equipments. With our own equipments, we try to have the most compliant equipments which is available as a capex. And when we have our partners, when we are selecting, we have got an onboarding parameters before they are we start the business with them. So it comprises of multiple evaluation points, right, starting from their financials to their operations to and multiple other things. These risks are being identified with the previous data what we have, and the risk and the analysis are driving us to multiple action plans or multiple checkpoints or updation of our checklist. So that is helping us in onboarding anybody, whether it is a supplier or a service provider. This is how we ensure the risk or the challenges are getting addressed in the day-to-day operations.
Thank you very much for sharing the things about the operations. Mr. Vinay, coming to you now. What eco-friendly refrigerants and insulation materials help reduce energy uses and increasing demand to preserve low temperature commodities? What are your suggestions about the eco-friendly refrigerants and energy efficient insulation material?
See, right now, if you see in India, right now, all our refrigerated equipments that we are using are either with R134A or R404 gases. So that itself are, eco-friendly gases. They are ozone-friendly. And slowly and gradually, we are also moving to CO2 as a source of refrigerant. Then we are also bringing in different gases, where we can have more ozone friendly kind of a thing. So we are working towards it. Ozone depletion, we are, it's there in our this thing to reduce the ozone depletion in future. So it's there in the pipeline. We are working on it. So slowly and gradually, maybe in next couple of years, we'll bring those gases to India as well, because availability right now is an issue over here. So right now, the gases that we are using are definitely ozone friendly and they are not harmful to the natures. And as far as insulation goes, the refrigerated equipment that we are using, the equipment doesn't require any insulation as such. The insulations are required in the container body, which carry the equipment. So even there, if you see over the years, right from, it started with polyurethane foam, now it is, then they graduated to XPS, now it is GRP. So lighter boxes are being used, better quality insulations are being used, which doesn't harm the nature. They reduce the carbon footprint. At the same time, they also have good performances.
New insulation materials and other things are developing. Coming to Ms. Preeti, Mr. Vinay was mentioning about the carbon dioxide, and you also mentioned about dry ice. So what trends you see in adapting logistical strategies to overcome complexities in global supply chains, like you mentioned about Singapore also, and distribution network? And dry ice, I was seeing your presentation, it is a dangerous thing to use, whether it does not harm the commodities.
See, dry ice is a very unique refrigerant, I would say. Um, so when we talk about sustainability and stuff, and the challenges related to dry ice, um, one of the challenges that it's a carbon dioxide. The other thing is that it dissipates very quickly. But the beauty of dry ice is its temperature minus 78.5 degree temperature that it maintains, and it's easy to replenish. And the alternates, a lot of companies, even during the COVID times, they were trying to replicate, not exactly replicate, but, make the PCMs which are of minus 80 degrees so that, they give that temperature if that's a requirement. But it is not very easy to get the replicates, because making a phase change material as a refrigerant, maybe through organic, inorganic PCMs, they can still make it. But you need to have those kind of equipments to precondition the PCMs also. That means if you want to replicate dry ice, you need to have a freezer, which is minus 80 degrees Celsius. Then only you'll be able to freeze that PCM and use it as an alternative. And at how many places you would imagine having those kind of equipments available? So, when dry ice could be a challenge, but there are other bigger challenges, to get the alternates of that. But the good thing is, when we are transporting a particular shipment, we need to check whether we can transport it only in dry ice, only in -80, or the acceptable temperature range could also be -25 to -15, in which case the availability of PCMs is very easy. And the conditioning is done normally in -40 degree, -30 degrees. So those kind of freezers are still available. So, while there are opportunities, there are also challenges. So, which is what option do we get, which is operationally available at the moment is something, it's all about the availability, and then we make the choices.
We have to make the choices depending upon the availability.
Availability, yeah.
Yeah. You were just mentioning about the technologies like AI and predictive maintenance. So what automation and robotic trends do you see in warehouse operation and packaging solutions?
I cannot say about warehouse operations, but I can say about the packaging solutions
Definitely.
for sure.
Yes.
So, any kind of packaging system, there are different kind of technologies of the packaging system. Either you're using VIP PCMs or you're using an EPS and a water-based system, let's say. So if you have the data, let's say the shipment has to go to one route. If it is going from India to Russia, the kind of ambient temperatures the package would go through in summer, winter, or in rainy season, if we have all that kind of data available with us, and in the past what kind of packaging we have used, and if there has been any temperature excursion, the amalgamation of all this data then would give us the predictive analysis ki hey, there was a temperature excursion when you use this configuration, and if you have used X configuration in the summer season, there has been no temperature excursion. So if we have that kind of data through artificial intelligence available with us, the number of temperature excursions could go really low. So, that's how we can use the AI and predictive analysis, I would say, for the temperature control packaging systems.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing those insights. Mr. Phillips, yeah, Mr. Phillips, what robotic trends do you see for warehousing and logistics?
Uh, for cold chain is concerned, if
Yeah.
wherever there is a possibility of reduction of touch points in the product,
Mhm.
see that is one thing which we are highly focusing on in terms of the robotics is concerned, and the integration of lot of barcodes and QR codes into the products, and thus driving the entire production plan. And from the forecasting side of it, if I say little touch upon, there is AI and ML is being used to analyze the trends and the real-time trends to get the forward and reverse supply chain streamlined. So these are the trends which is in automation or in robotics, what we can say, and also the manless operations, the manless equipments which are being used in warehousing and supply chain. This is also been like evaluated, and it is also been evaluated, and there are low cost models are also now been available, because the technology is getting matured. The cost of initial investment is coming down, so that is also promoting a lot of investment towards the robotics side of it, because the ROI is better visible. ROIs are there. So these are the trends which I can say.
Thank you very much. The emerging trends are there with the emerging requirements.
Yep.
So we have touched almost all the aspects of cold chain logistics. So one thing which I want to know is what are the regulatory compliance and standards being used? To start with, Doctor.
In cold chain, I think India is still far behind. We are still using R134A, 404A, 407C refrigerants, and Europe has graduated on them 10 years back. And the challenge is, it is not the issue with us, it is the issue with the refrigerant supply chain. We have tried multiple times in deep rural locations, you don't even get any refrigerant, right? So it becomes a nightmare for for that. So that is one of the main challenge, I would say. Second is we don't have standards. We don't have any standard, I would say. We have seen so typically the way we size condenser is 10 degree, 15 degree or 20 degree above the ambient. And most of the condensers which we see is more than 20. We have not seen, we have just seen capillary tubes. There is not even a suction accumulator on these systems. And so I feel that that is one of the main challenge. And one of the reason is that the entire industry is very, I would say, focused or limited to metro cities. Right? Imagine a QSR, right? It's very difficult to go to a tier 3 city and expect having a good ice cream, right? Because at the night, if he doesn't have electricity, he need to have a diesel backup. So that is the primary challenge. And I think I think NCCD and AEEE, ESL, they are working towards the cold chain standards for some aspects of it.
Yes, definitely. Cold chain standards have to come. Ms. Preeti, what importance do you give to standards for packaging
Standards.
or cold chains?
So, I can tell you about the standards. So this for me, the transportation, the regulation that is dominating this part of the world is basically the good distribution practices, the GDP guidelines. And we have GDP guidelines from WHO. We have GDP guidelines from Europe, so European guidelines, and then we have FDA. So, if you see, then we have PICS. So all these different parts of the world, they have made their own regulations and they name it like GDP guidelines, but European guidelines or a WHO GDP guidelines or PICS GDP guidelines. But when you really go into the detail, you'll see that they talk about the same thing. They're not very different from each other. So, so the world really for this portion is dominated by the good distribution practices, GDP, and which according to, what I have read so far in so many years, everything to me looks same. It's not too much different. And when it comes to packaging per se, the packaging industry is dominated by ISTA guidelines. So for this kind, the temperature control packaging system that we do, they have ISTA 7D, and now they have come up with ISTA 7E guidelines. Very helpful. If you see the qualification reports, so now they are all standardized. Earlier, when I joined the industry 7 years back, we would do different kind of qualifications based on the different scenarios. But now we have a standardized guideline on if we have this kind of a temperature, of if you want to use this particular kind of a packaging system, you first test it through a particular standard, and then you prepare a report, which is then a reference point to see whether it would helpful for your requirement or not. So guidelines are very important. So GDP guidelines and ISTA guidelines for us.
Yes, so guidelines are very important for cold chain industry, and the progress is going on. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It was a very nice discussion and engaging discussion.